morning. Good morning. Does anybody else just like tap their head a little bit and you're just like, no, just me. Cool. All right. Like Pastor Mike said, my name is Bethany. I am the Young Professionals Ministry leader, and I am so excited to open God's Word. I love the Word of God, and as my SoCal roots would say, is I'm just stoked. Right? Anybody else stoked? So the ushers are up here, and they have a Bible and a pen. If that is something that would be useful and helpful for you this morning to fill out your sermon notes or to read along out of the Bible this morning, please give a little wave to them. So we've been looking at the last several weeks, if you've been here, what the Bible has to say about spiritual friendships. What does God want to teach us, to show us, to encourage us in as we build these spiritual friendships that can help to point us towards who God is, to God's Word, to the ways of God. We've claimed that true, authentic Christian friendships are the secret sauce, or that special ingredient that will just enhance our Christian life. Today, though, we're going to broaden that perspective just a little bit from two people, which is what we've been looking at and what you typically think of a friendship, to a bigger group of people. Spiritual friendships are a stepping stone, a stepping ground to building a spiritual community. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Authentic spiritual communities are built on spiritual friendships. That's the first point on your notes there, that authentic spiritual communities are built on these spiritual friendships that we've been talking about. These friendships in and of themselves, they're good, and we see God working and moving and teaching us so much stuff. But the impact that a community of people can have is far greater and more expansive. And a lot of that is just from the critical mass that you can get and the visuals. So like if you think about, you walk into Starbucks and somebody's there and they're one, maybe two people are reading God's Word and praying together. You might notice what they're doing, but you might not. But if you had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus people sitting around in a coffee shop reading God's Word and praying, you probably would start to notice, and you would probably be asking questions and wondering, what is going on? What are they doing over there? What are all these people? So just that critical mass, it just builds in the uniqueness of what can come out of that. In my free time, I often like to listen to podcasts, and by free time, I mean wash dishes. And so when I wash dishes, I'll listen to podcasts. So recently I listened to this one, and it was entitled, You Can't Do Everything. You can't do everything. Somebody else said, It caught me too. It caught me too, because I was like, I like to think of myself as a pretty can-do everything, capable, independent type of person. Especially when I was younger, I was really into, if somebody said, oh no, that's too hard for you, or you can't do that, or you're not strong enough, I'd be like, oh yeah, you want to bet? Let me show you. And I would do it. I loved proving people wrong, especially men. I loved proving them wrong, to be like, no, I can do this. And maybe what I'm proving myself in is a little bit different now. I don't need to lift heavy boxes anymore. I'm like, go for it. Go lift those heavy boxes. But I'm trying to prove myself in how I parent, or in how I look, or just in having it all together. Sort of that 2 thumbs up kind of an identity. We live in a society that's all about needing to prove yourself to other people by doing it all and doing it well. You need to do more, you need to do it faster, you need to do it stronger, do it better, do it more efficient, more effective, and you have to do it all by yourself. Because that's how you get the praise, that's how you get the acclamation, right? That's how you get that little sticker. Your kids come home with a little sticker. It's like, good job, you did it. Y-O-U, capital, you did it, all by yourself. Now, the ironic thing is that right before I had this moment of listening to this podcast, washing dishes, is I actually sent my husband, Matt, this text message. And this is what my text message said. How do people do it all? Wash dishes, wash bottles, clean the kitchen, sweep and mop kitchen floors, clean our bathroom, organize toys, take a shower, read a book, work on sermon, prepare dinner, fold laundry. Where do I even start? Now, my husband, because he's so wonderful, he's a great husband, he replied back, and he said, shower, sermon, the rest will get done later. My response, though, in the I need to do all these things kind of a moment is, I don't think that this will all get done later. And so what did I do? I didn't shower and I didn't work on my sermon. I washed the dishes and the bottles, and I listened to this podcast that said, you can't do everything. And I was like, ouch, okay. I'm working on my sermon clearly right now because this is the illustration. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, but for now we're going to look at Exodus chapter 17, if you want to start turning there, and I'll give a little bit of context. So we're going to be looking at 4 men. So remember, we're expanding our spiritual friendships, expanding it to the spiritual community. We're going to be looking at 4 men, and what do they do in the midst of a crisis? Now, leading up to this point, there kind of has already been a little bit of a crisis that has gone on because the Israelites, they were captives in Egypt, and they had just been freed coming through the Red Sea, and then they got into the desert, and they were so excited, but then they had some more crisis because they were complaining about the lack of water and the lack of food, and Moses, who was the leader of the Israelites, he had to continue to tell them to remain faithful. God is faithful. He's going to provide for us, and God does provide for them. And then they get to this place, Rephidim, and that is where we're looking at today. In Rephidim, again, there's no water. And so God tells Moses, he says, take your staff and strike it against the rock, and then water is going to pour out for them to drink. And it does. So the Israelites, this is where they're at. They're tired, they're complaining, they're grumbling, and they just got water out of a rock. And this is what happens. Verse 8, we're in chapter 17, verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. The Amalekites, they're this nomadic people group, and they just come out of nowhere, and they just attack the Israelites. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. So here's our 4 men. Here's our community here. We have Moses, the leader of the Israelites. We have Joshua, who Joshua goes on, he goes on to become the leader of the Israelites, but this is actually the first time we're introduced to Joshua in the Bible. And he fights more battles, but this is his first battle right here with the Amalekites. And then we have Aaron, who is Moses' brother. And Aaron, he's been with Moses since the beginning of coming out of Egypt, and he's been there supporting Moses and being a voice and helping him. And then we have Hur, who is also first time on the scene, becomes a trusted ally of Moses. So this is our 4 spiritual friends, our spiritual community right here. We continue on, verse 11. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. So they won the battle. But it wasn't without a little bit of help here. So first is we have this staff of God that Moses is holding. Now the staff of God, when God first gave it to Moses, this is what God had to say about it. This is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. This is the same staff that Moses used to split the Red Sea. It's the same staff that he used to strike the rock so water would come out. And now this is the staff that he is going to use to fight this battle. And he holds it over his head like this. And when he has his arms up, they're winning. They're winning the battle. And when his arms start to fall, because as you could probably imagine, holding your arms like this might be a little bit tough. When his arms start to fall, then they start to lose the battle. And the Amalekites are winning. It makes me think a little bit about Survivor. Are any of you guys Survivor watchers? Okay, just us. We kind of jumped on the Survivor bandwagon a little bit late, but I thought we could do a little Survivor challenge. We're not going for $1 million, but so if you're interested, then I'm going to challenge you to hold your arms up like this, like me. Yeah, there you go. Just hold your, good. Way more than first service. Good job. Good job. Good job. So just keep your arms up for a little bit. I will tell you when you can put them down, so I won't forget about you. But I just want us to get a feel of what this might have been like to hold our arms up, for Moses to hold his arms up. He did this for probably about 12 hours. 12 hours. I've been doing this a little bit, maybe like 30 seconds or a minute longer than you. I'm already starting to feel it in my triceps a little bit. So keep your arms up. Keep your arms up. I'm going to finish reading the passage, okay? No, and I'll come back to you. I promise I'll come back to you. Just get a little taste of what it would have been like for Moses. All right. Okay. Verse 14. The Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it. So write this on a scroll. We won. And we need Joshua to hear it because Joshua, he's down fighting the battle. Below, Moses, Aaron, and Hur, they're up fighting the battle up here. And God is like, Joshua needs to know who won this battle. The staff of God won this battle. And Joshua, he's going to fight a lot more battles. And so he needs to know the power and the faithfulness of which God provides so that he can continue on. So write it on a scroll because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. So they built this altar, the Lord is my banner. The Lord is my banner, saying that the Lord is going to provide all things that the Israelites need. They need to keep trusting in God, trusting in the faithfulness of what God will do and provide. The Lord is my banner. How you guys doing? Great. I hear some great. I see a couple of little. All right, you guys can go ahead and put your arms down now. Good. Imagine 11 hours and 55 more minutes. Yeah. When crisis comes, you can't go at it alone. Sometimes I think that you think you can, or you want to prove to others, I can do it. I can handle it. Let me show you. See, I can handle it. But when crisis comes, we need to call out to God first and foremost, because God is the one who's going to bring peace and comfort and strength and confidence and wisdom for us to even begin to consider holding our arms up. And then when crisis comes, we need people there. We need a community that can lift our arms up and that can help us fight those battles. We need people that can point us to Lord as our banner. The help and support, it does ultimately come from God. That's where the power of God in that staff. But the beauty of what God shows us, what I love that God shows us in this moment right here through Moses, Aaron, Hur, and Joshua, is that God's power can be seen and mobilized through a spiritual community when it's working together. Write that down. God's power can be seen and mobilized through a spiritual community that is working together. When we have spiritual communities that are encouraging each other and pointing each other back to God, then God is going to be seen and people are going to notice and lives are going to be changed. So I want us to identify and look at what are 3 ways that we can see this kind of community happen based off of this story here. What are 3 things that we can learn in building a community? First, we need to honor and encourage each person to be the unique person God created them to be. Honor and encourage each person to be the unique person God created them to be. See, Moses, Aaron, Hur, and Joshua, they all had unique and important and valuable roles to fulfill in order for this battle to be won and in order for God's power to go forth. Not everybody gets to be the leader, and not everybody gets to be the fighter, and not everybody gets to be the helper. But all of those were needed in this moment in order for this to happen. And not only did they need to take their place, but everybody else needed to support and encourage the other ones and where they were supposed to be. Because if somebody had jealousy or envy of somebody else and is like, oh no, I really want to be over there, well then it wouldn't have worked. Or if they were just like this holy little huddle all the time that were like, we just want to be together all the time, then it wouldn't have worked. Or if somebody is like, I'm going to just do this over here even though I'm not very good at it, it wouldn't have worked. They all needed to fulfill their unique role. And the other ones needed to encourage and honor the other ones in their role. You are unique. Turn to somebody and say, you are unique. You are unique. You are supposed to be the person God created you to be. You're not supposed to be like that person or this person or me or that person you see on TV. You are supposed to be you because God created you unique. And maybe you're like, yeah, but I don't really know who I am. Then you need to figure it out. You can read books. You can try a bunch of different things, take risks, and figure out what works and what falls flat. You can talk to people and ask them, what do you think? You can pray. You can ask God, say, who am I, God? You can go to counseling, kind of deal with some of whatever stuff is going on so you can be more of yourself. And then my personal favorite, which I would love to talk with anybody about this, is to do personality assessments, right? Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, StrengthsFinders, those are just a few. In our Welcome to REC class, we do a SHAPE assessment, which is looking at your spiritual gifts, your heart abilities, heart desires, abilities, personality, and then experiences, your SHAPE. So all of these tools, they help us to identify and discover, who am I? Who has God created me to be? And it's important for you to discover this, and it's important for you to become a whole, healthy person that God has created you to be, because then when you step in to a spiritual community, then you can be honored and encouraged in the uniqueness of who you are. And you can live out your passions and your desires in ways that are going to fulfill this community in more ways because you are part of it. I think a great example of this in our community here is the Harvest Festival. So this is my first time going to the Harvest Festival this last October, and it was awesome to see how each person filled and stepped into a different role in a different place. And it wouldn't have worked with one or two people. It took all of us to say yes to something, whether or not that is, I'm really good at welcoming people and talking to people and being hospitable, so you go there. Or I love just playing games and having fun and interacting with kids, you go here. I'm not really good with the people thing, I need to be more behind the scenes. Great, you go here, buy this stuff, get this stuff. It took each one of us and the uniqueness of who we were to put on something like this. And let me tell you, this community, meaning the larger Sacramento community, is transformed in a way because of God's power coming through our community working together like that. People came and experienced God and his love and his power in a way that they just wouldn't experience in any other way, in any other situation, except for when the uniqueness of a bunch of people come together to do something miraculous and amazing. The second thing that I think we need in a community that we can learn from this is that we need to be willing to receive help and support from trusted friends. Oftentimes, I think we think of Moses' leadership and we think, man, he has just got it all together. He's just so heroic. He talked to the Egyptian Pharaoh and he helped the Israelites get out of Egypt, and he parted the Red Sea, and he dealt with all their grumbling in the desert, and he's making water appear out of rocks. In this moment right there, right here, in his leadership, he said, I want to receive help from Aaron and her. He could have been like, as they came up, nah, guys, I'm good. I'm the leader. I got it. I'm going to prove it to you. God called me. God didn't call you to be the leader. I got it. He could have been like, no. But he didn't. He didn't. He said yes to receiving the help. And I think part of that is because Moses, as a leader, instead of saying, oh, being a leader means I need to prove myself and show how strong and capable I am all the time. No, I think he was thinking, I need to figure out how to love my people by making sure that we do not lose this battle and keeping my arms up. He is caring for his people. I think that the willingness to receive help and support is especially difficult for people who have some kind of a leadership role. And that could be leadership in your workplace. It could be leadership in community. It could be in the church here. It could be at a school. Lots of different ways that you can step into leadership. I also think this is especially difficult for moms, being a mom myself. Both leaders and for moms, I think there's this temptation and there's a pressure of needing to have it all together. That you need to have it all together, and you need to have it all together all the time for everybody. That we need to be strong, we need to know all the answers all the time, and we can't show weakness. We can't show mistakes. We can't show insecurities. We can't show doubts. Because if we do that, somebody might say, ooh, they just made a mistake. They must not be a good leader. Or somebody might say, ooh, their kids are running around chaotic. They must be a bad mom. I think what happens when we begin to live a lie that we have to have it all together all the time for everybody in every situation, that your arms start falling and you start losing the battle. Because you move to loneliness and isolation and experience more insecurities in your life. It's vulnerable, it's risky to ask for help. It's vulnerable, it's risky to accept help. But in order to build this kind of an authentic spiritual community, we need to take risks, and you have to have a certain level of vulnerability. Moses was losing. It was clear. He was losing. And when help came, he said yes. He didn't reject it. We are a foster family, or what it actually is called now is a resource family, if you didn't know that. And last year, 2017, on Halloween, we got a phone call to pick up a 2-day-old baby girl from UC Davis. And they asked us if we could be there in the next 2 or 3 hours. My husband, we live in Elk Grove, so UC Davis. My husband, he works in Lodi, so he was at work. So I'm calling him up. My dad, who's from Portland, Oregon, was actually visiting us at that time, to add on another layer. And it was Halloween, and we had a 2.5-year-old who for the first time understood what Halloween was all about, and she was ready to trick or treat, and she was ready with her superhero costume on that she didn't waver from for 2 months. She knew exactly what she wanted to be. You know, sometimes they go, I want to be this, I want to be this, I want to be, you know. She knew for that whole time. She was ready to rock and roll. And we got this phone call. We didn't have a car seat in the car. We didn't have diapers. We didn't have newborn clothes. We had a crib, but it was not in the room that was where she was going to sleep. It was actually in the room where my dad was sleeping. So we had to move that around. Needless to say, I was feeling like there was a bit of a chaos and crisis, and something had just kind of train rolled me a little bit, and my arms were starting to fall. And I needed to do something about that. So I asked some friends, people that are actually here in our community, I said, hey, can you help us out? We got a phone call. They said, of course. They took our daughter, they got her dinner, they took her trick-or-treating. We went and picked up our baby, and then more people started learning about what was happening, and so I'm getting text messages like, hey, can we get you diapers? Can we get you formula? Can we get you, what do you need? And at first, again, I was feeling a little bit vulnerable because I'm like, do you think I don't know how to take care of kids? Why are you asking me if I need this stuff? Or I'm like, do you think we can't afford this? But it wasn't about that. It was about me and my perceptions and my ego willing to say, yeah, this is a pretty crazy, chaotic time. Yes, I will take your help. I will take those diapers. I will take that formula. I will take those meals for the next 3 months. Please. I just want to say, if you have a baby, if you get a baby, if you lose a baby, if you lose a loved one, if somebody says, hey, can I bring you a meal? Could I clean your house? Say yes. Say yes. It can feel vulnerable. Say yes. The last thing I think we need in a community, which is kind of going off the tagline of that one, which is we need to know the needs of one another and give practical help. See, one of the things I love about Aaron and Hur in this story is that they don't ask Moses what he needs. They don't say, hey, what can we do to help you? They just see the need. They have that close of a relationship and friendship that they just see what he needs, and then they get in there. And it's not like, all right, buddy, like, that sweat's going to get in your eye. Let me wipe it off. Like, okay, you're doing good. Like, keep it up, keep it up. No, they get a rock. They put it under him. They take their own bodies. They put their arms up. They are getting in there in a very practical way. I think we oftentimes think that when we step in to help somebody that we're going to fix it. But it's not about fixing problems, right? If somebody loses a loved one, you can't fix that. But you could bring them a meal. You could sit next to them. You can pray with them. If somebody's house burns down, you can't fix that. But you can send 5 carloads of things that people might need and raise over $1,500 to give towards them. It's not about fixing. It's about holding someone up, supporting them, encouraging them, and letting them know you are not alone. I think it was hard for Moses to be holding his arms up. But I think it was probably also physically challenging for Aaron and Hur to hold his arms up, right? It's not like they just probably got to do whatever they want on their phones. They had to physically hold his arms up. So in some ways, I think they counted the cost. They counted the cost of what it would mean for themselves to suffer in order to not just sit by and watch Moses suffer and watch Joshua and the army suffer. They were willing to say, I am going to suffer and bear this burden and to step in and get into the craziness and the ugliness of what is happening. And I think if they didn't step in, they would have lost this battle. Sometimes in our lives, if people don't step in, we lose battles. It does take time to know somebody and get to know what they might need. Relationships, they don't just happen overnight. It's not like, poof, hey, I know exactly what you need. No, it takes time. So you have to build it into your schedule. You have to be willing to say no to other things so that you can say yes to building relationships and say yes to connecting with people and say yes to the awkwardness of almost like a first date when you're like trying to meet people, right? You're asking questions and just awkward silence. You have to be willing to say yes to that. I started going to the mom's prayer gathering with some of the women here in the church that they started Wednesday mornings. And there's nothing like a bunch of babies and toddlers running around and you're trying not to spill your coffee and you're multitasking like tons of things and trying to like make yourself seem normal by not like yelling at your kids. I mean, there's so much chaos going on. Come join us if you would like to. Moms, Wednesdays. In the midst of this chaos, though, relationships have been formed and built. And we share the things that we're going through, and we're beginning to know people and know the needs of one another. And we've been able to give some practical help, like, hey, I need a stroller, I need a changing pad mattress, or gluten-free recipes, or crock pots. We also have been able to pray for each other and give words of wisdom and give words of encouragement. Or my favorite is just a little bit of validation of like, yes, I have also wanted to throw my kid out the window before. Yeah. You're not the only one. You're not a bad parent if you want to throw your kid out the window sometimes. You're only a bad parent if you do it, so don't do it. We're lifting each other up in practical ways through the vulnerability and the willingness of sharing our messy lives. And when a moment gets a little too crazy and our hands start falling a little bit in those moments, then we have somebody right there who's ready to swoop in to help lift our hands up, and in most cases also to grab that kid out of your arms so maybe you get to drink a cup of coffee without it spilling. So I want to come back to my text message that I said earlier when I asked Matt, how do people do it all? How do people do it all? The answer is that when you are part of an authentic spiritual community, you don't have to do it all. And you shouldn't have to do it all. That is not what God's kingdom is about. We have to stop thinking of ourselves in an isolated, independent way, thinking, I can do it all by myself, let me prove it to you. Because when crisis and chaos comes, we often think we can go at it alone. But you can't. It's too costly to think you don't need help. The stakes are too high to not step in and give support. When Moses' arms were falling, they started losing the battle. It's too costly to think you don't need help. The stakes are too high to not step in and give support. Don't let pride, don't let ego, don't let perceptions get in the way of you fighting those battles. These are the moments when we need people the most. When we need people to say, hey, I'm with you, and I'm going to point you to the one that can give you true source of life. God's power can be seen and mobilized through a spiritual community that is working together, giving and receiving help and support. When we do this for each other people are going to notice. And other people are going to say, I want in on that. That is good. That is good news that I have not had before. So my question to you is this. Whose arms are you holding up? And who's holding up your arms? Whose arms are you holding up, and who's holding up your arms? Because you can't do it alone. And if you think that you can, I'm telling you right now, you can't. That's a lie. If people are coming up to you as you think about, these are the people who are helping to hold my arms up, I want you to just write that down on your notes. And if there aren't people that you can think of, or if you're writing names down, but none of them happen to be here in this church, in our community here, then I want you to write something else down. I want to challenge you to write on your connection card, saying, I want to get connected to a community. I want to get connected to a gathering of people, a life group. I don't want to go at this alone. Help me get connected. I think when you get into those places, I'm just going to be honest and say, it might be awkward. It might not be easy. But isn't that life? Life is awkward and it's not easy. And I am happy to say, hi, my name is Bethany. I have an awkward, crazy life. Would you like to step into it? And I would love to step into your life too. Because that is how we hold each other up, and that is how we can point each other back to the source of life. The Lord is my banner. In the craziness and the chaos, when it comes, don't go at it alone. Choose community, choose Christ. Let me pray for us. God, we need you. We need you. We need your love, your support, your leadership, your wisdom. God, we need other people too. So I pray, Lord, that you would be putting people into our lives. And if there are people here this morning that don't have that support, that feel like their arms are falling, even in this moment, Lord, would you be pointing them into the right direction so that they can have people that can be coming alongside them, pointing them back to you, reminding you to trust in the goodness of all that you are faithful. Help us, Lord, to lay down whatever it is that might be keeping us, our ego, our pride, other people's perceptions of us, whatever it is, so that we might be willing to say yes to you through the people that you put into our lives. God, we love you.